Go on then. Who here doesn't remember their first time? Well, today, in this fantastic episode, we are going to go through the ups and downs, the ins and outs of my first time with Hinoki Cypress.
You had me worried for a minute.
But why else did I look at a Hinoki Cypress? Well, it was because of a Yella video, and he talked about it's important that we all look to challenge ourselves. I picked the Hinoki because you've never seen it, and I've never ever dealt with it. So this is going to be real and raw as I butcher a Hinoki. If you want to see that, but also see me have a little bit of a play with this Scots pine, which I've had for a good couple of years. And Yella also did a really interesting video about a juniper cutting that he needed to have a look at. And he did a repot just a week or two ago. And guess what? I've had this line about for a couple of years. This was cuttings, and pots all bust up. And I saw that, and I thought, if Yella can do it, why don't I give it a go? And I thought it would look ever so good in this very interesting ERIN pot. I hate these, but to find out why, you need to keep watching. So lots of content. Let's roll the credits. Hi, it's Xavier. Welcome to my bonsai retreat. I'm in the indoor studio. Hopefully it's fine for you. It's only 7 days till Christmas. I've still got presents to wrap, but we have got the tree. Just need to get out of the binding before all the needles fall off. Anyway, Hinoki Cypress. That's my challenge to myself after watching Yella's video. But Hinoki, I've heard some odd things about it. I've heard things that it doesn't backbud from older wood, that, you know, well, there's all sorts of new nuances, as Ryan Neal would like to say. And I want to discover them. So should we go back 2 weeks and have a little look and see what I was doing when it was still enough sun to work outside? Well, right now it's the 6th of December 2024, and finally I've decided to show my Hinoki Cypress. I actually bought this back a good few years ago as a nursery plant, and I think the only thing I did was thinned out lots of branches and then literally left a much more open style. And the reason why I haven't done anything more with it is because I keep missing what I perceive to be the best window to do stuff. We're just hitting winter now. I'm going to wire this. But the main thing I've got to remember is that Hinoki Cypress, the big takeaway I think that anyone who deals with them will know, is, to my knowledge, they don't backbud from old wood or anything like this. So once you lose, like here, that area there, then it won't get any more buds closer in. So you've got to be really careful about picking where your wire goes, with a view to looking at areas where there are already shoots that are coming out. And hopefully my aim is that on something like this, I've got shoots all the way back here. I may well be able to bring the growth closer in, but this is a challenge for me, so it's going to start now. First thing, let's just give it a quick spin. Obviously this great big deep pot is not what it's going to stay in. We've got some browning on the ends of these. I'll be removing all those sort of tips. Anything that is clearly dead I'm going to remove, so that all I'm working with is stuff that I know is definitely alive. Got a lot of good stuff at the top, and there's some promising stuff here. Now granted, I will also probably be wiring over. What happens with this is, while it's still juvenile, you still get the green scale of the growth before it becomes actual bark. But so let's Hinoki away, shall we? So why I thought we're going to do this is I'm actually going to work through this step by step. Now I've cleared away the dead stuff, and looking straight away, and then looking straight away, obviously we're going to keep this main base. But here we've actually got, I was looking at this big long straight bit, there's no taper on it. I'm not sure it has a place in the design. Here I've got much more usable material here, and I think where there's still green on the actual branch structure, I'm hoping that means we can still get back budding there. It's not yet died off, so that could still be active. And I've got another one here, and I've got this here. So I've applied the wire to these ones. So what I am going to do, leaving a stub in this instance, is just take that off. We'll say bye-bye to the first branch of the Hinoki, which means I then want to look at creating an initial branch structure. I've got a small one there, hopefully that'll be fine. And we've got this here. I'm going to bring this in closer. And just shorten off. Now I'm cutting through the scale, so that does mean whenever you cut through scale you will get die off of those ones, but the action of actually cutting through the scale should promote dormant buds from beneath and lower down to actually shoot out, a bit like you would with a juniper. So I'm going to continue to just position this how I want it. And it's a bit tough to see at the moment, because obviously what I'm hoping for is when I start looking at this next year, we're going to get lots of growth coming from, hopefully, where there's dormant buds in those sites. Okay, well, I've put a decent spread around there, and I've just wired up these ones. This big heavy one I've wired up to this one. Now I did think, because there's absolutely no taper on that central trunk till we get higher up, of actually removing that whole thing. And I may actually still end up removing that top part, but what we'll do is we just want to get a few more of these branches into position. And really, I keep saying, this is all about me learning about Hinoki. How much, when it's healthy, is it going to bud and put out new growth? That's what I'm going to find out. Well, my hands are like ice blocks, so I'm sure I look like Frosty the Snowman. Again, got it spaced out. The more I look at it, this just needs to go now. I think this is going to be where the new lead is going to be. So for now, I'm just going to take off those top parts there. They could end up being ginned. I want to see, hopefully, what we'll get is just a little bit of growth here. As I say, I'm bringing this one back and around. So it may, well, actually, let's just make it really obvious. This top bit here I'm going to gin. So let's get rid of that. Right, I think that's about as far as I'm going to go. We'll give it a spin, and then it's going to go down there in the cold frame, I think. So there's your viewing angle, looking at the front in here. I'm really intrigued to see just what sort of growth we're going to get, if anything. Obviously it's December. I know you can wire it now, but I haven't done anything with these before in my life. So I've taken quite a bit off. There's going to be the new leader up there. And I think you can see here clearly there needed to be a point where that taper starts happening. So this, I'm leaving some length on here because I still want energy feeding through to try and get these to grow out. But for now, that's it. Gosh, it's cold. We'll just put it down in a nice warm spot here with all the Chinese elm. There we go. And hopefully that will be fine. Well, I'm back from the greenhouse, and the main reason it's in there is not so much that I'm worried about the really low temperatures, but it's I can control the amount of water that actually gets stuck in a root ball. I'm very aware that the winters in the UK can be really wet, and if you're not careful, you can often get a lot of waterlogged root balls, and nobody likes to wake up with a waterlogged root ball, do they?
Can he say that?
I don't normally repot this time of the year, but it's one of my cuttings. Yellow's done it, so hey, let's roll the dice and see if it's going to be fine, because secretly it is actually going to be fine. I've repotted this time of the year. It'll be great. So this was a cutting that I took definitely 4 or 5 years ago. Let's pull this out and have a look and see what we've got. And by the way, we will talk about the biggest disadvantage with pots such as these. Now, as I mentioned, you can see it's got its winter coat on. The needles have yellowed off. I'll have a little look through there, but there's actually a really quite good delineation of structure and branches. What I don't actually know is whether there's 2 trees out of this rooted cutting. And by the way, did I use any special techniques? No, I used the tried and tested, poke it in a bit of old soil and ignore it technique. Works wonders for most of my cuttings, to be fair.
And your trees?
Let's have a look. Good, fine set of roots all around there. Actually got quite a lot of roots. Will I take it all off? Well, I've got to get it into there. So, as it's a cutting, I'm not sure what variety it is. Looks like it's definitely a scale juniper. I suppose the biggest question is when we try and sort through this root ball is, are they indeed actually the same tree? And I think we discover that indeed we have 2 very interesting cuttings. Like that, that's got nice potential. Indeed has that. So, well, with that mystery resolved, I've put I suppose the bigger of the 2, which is here, just covered it in the soil again, and I'll get back to that in a minute. Which leaves us with this one here, which has got interesting movement here, which obviously I think we're going to have to try and take advantage of. And there's just a little branch there and here. So probably a little one here. Don't know. So I think what I might do, that can go off nicely that way. I'll get some wire on there, come back to you. We'll get it into that little pot and have a look and see what we can do. So what I've done is I've got a central core wire, which if you look underneath there is literally just looped there and up through the screen. It's going to be certainly enough that I can use it to keep the tree in the pot, and then also to apply some movement on whichever branch I choose. So all I need to do now is put a load of bonsai soil in there. And for those of you who are wondering, who haven't seen my stuff before, this is a pumice zeolite mix with probably a little bit of vermiculite in there, which I like to include. I find it very good for moisture retention. I mean, that's an interesting line there already. So let me get the wire on the rest of this and then we'll have a bit of a bend. So I'm quite happy with how the wire's gone on there. Now I have had to be careful. What I don't want to do is rub the bark off, but to be honest, this time of the year, that's there's not as much juice in there as there is in summer, so the chances of that are pretty small. But all I now need to do is try and decide. I imagine the front is going to be in there. I like that, which means we decide whether this is going to be going as the new leader upwards, or whether that's going to be an anchoring branch downwards and this becoming a new leader. Any other option, I mean, I like the V there, is it's got to be on that side where you've got the bend coming out here and up. So again, there's no easy right answer. I'm going to look at it, and this is one of the biggest tips I give, certainly when you're learning and you're still learning about design. Don't rush. Got the wire on, you've cleared your way, it's secure, get yourself a cup of coffee and spend some time and really look at it. Because once you make this next decision, you are deciding the fate of this tree for the foreseeable future. That's important, so take your time. And that's what I'm going to do now. See you in a mo. I'm going to sit with the front here, moving round, coming up, and then I'm just going to manipulate this. And then this bigger branch, you see the reason why I was a bit annoyed is that's actually the one on the right hand side just here is actually the thicker branch, and in order of primacy that should probably have been the main trunk, because you'd expect the biggest part of the branch, or so to speak, to be the main trunk line. Instead we're actually going off here, which means that has to do a bit of catching up, so I'm going to let this grow out. This, I think what we'll do is we will literally just seek to potentially up and then bend it down so we've got some branches that are coming off this way. And again, all I am going to do is quite happy to keep that going up for now. I will do a little bit of cutting. Stuff that we know we won't want coming towards us. Got to decide, I've got two in here and I need to decide which one I actually want. So if I cut that one off, that'll make that gap even bigger. So let's cut this one off. And as I say, with what we've got here, there's all sorts of potential interesting things that can happen. We'll just shorten a few of these off. I'm going to have another bit of a bendy wendy. I've got to think about this because I want to see if I can get some of these branches into horizontal planes without it looking too odd. Okay, well, I think I've got where I want to go with it. It's like all things I do, it's a little bit off centre from what a lot of other people might do, but I like it. And truthfully, there's a little surprise I've discovered. There we go. I love this ERIN pot. Absolutely complements it. I love the movement we've got here. And remember, I'm setting up basically some primary structure for this. I'm going to let this absolutely beef out, and then I may come back in and remove quite a lot, but we've got some interesting bends and movement over both sides. And I was looking at the front somewhere around there, and I happened to give it a quick twirl. And I saw that, and I don't know about you, I think there's potentially quite a lot of interesting potential here, but eventually I could see this becoming a very, very intriguing, maybe, literati style. I could see that branch going. I'm keeping that, by the way, because what I want next year is I want as much foliage growth upwards that's going to give strength to this. One, to strengthen those roots, and two, to just give me more options. But for a bit of a play, I'm actually really quite happy with this, and I love the pot. Of course, brings me to the big teaser I did at the beginning. What's the big problem with these? Well, it's not that it's made by ERIN, it's the fact that it's one of these big belly pots. So as the root mass expands in this, it becomes very, very difficult to remove it and pull it out. And what you have to remember is do not leave it in this too long, otherwise that root mass would just be nearly impossible to get out. And because of the nature of the edging on this clay pottery, on this ceramic, you're more likely to cause damage trying to get it out. So I'm going to put a little note, guess where? In my bonsai database. If you haven't heard of it, you haven't seen it, have a look at the description. I'm offering it out totally free, and there are a lot of people who are using it and enjoying it and finding it great for cataloguing and storing all the information they've got about their trees, but more importantly giving them a great monthly bring up diary. I suppose we really need to get this done, but you don't want to watch that, so I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, well, I spent about half an hour trying to get some wire and get this one sorted. It's funny how two cuttings that are, you'd think were pretty well the same can be so difficult, or can be so different in how you actually style them. It's amazing. I've got this in this lovely Dawn Isaac ceramic, burnished copper. Very, very straightforward. We'll see how it develops. I found this one a little bit more challenging actually. And again, it always comes down to, if you get the direction of the wire wrong, you can't do the bends in the directions you want. So there it is. Again, lots of little movement put in there. This is early stages. What I wanted to do is to really throw on growth over 2025, 2026, and then I can probably revisit and start looking at the sort of the secondary branching and structure, and whether indeed I keep that or concentrate on this. And I don't know, there's so many options there. But the best thing about it, they're both free from cuttings. So there's just one more thing to do before we get to that Scots pine. I've got it in its watering tray. I've got my solution of Super Thrive made up, and now all I'm going to do is carefully give those roots a really good soaking. They've actually, there we go. There we go. So yeah, I'm happy with the results. I think both will turn out to be really lovely Mame Junipers, and only time will be the test. Well, that's those two junipers done, and really happy with how they both turned out. So really all that's left for today's episode is to have a good look at getting some wire on this this Scots pine, which as I say, I've had for 6-7 years. But in fact, no, I'm spoiling you. I'm giving you too much content. I'm going to save this for the final episode of the year, which is going to come out in a few days, which is going to be the Christmas special. We'll get this wired up, plus a few other things, including an update on Tony's trees. Very hard to talk when you've got a biscuit in your mouth without chucking crumbs everywhere. In fact, what I will do is give a big shout out and thank you to Yellow of Growing Bonsai. You know that he and I work together quite closely. I'm very lucky, I think, to have his experience to lean upon, and so it's a big thumbs up and thanks to Yella. I've got the links to the two videos that brought about these two challenges. The Hinoki Cypress, which is to challenge yourself to do something you've never tackled before. And I'll tell you now, the other thing I'm tackling, which you've probably started picking up on, is I'm going to fertilise my bonsai, but the ones that are important, the ones that are going to move forwards. Before I go, if you want to enjoy probably one of my biggest challenges, that's the video you have to watch next. Apart from that, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.